Story 1, Halo was basically a religion in its prime. Every kid on the block was either talking about their last match, planning the next, or physically at someone's house playing it. Local area network parties were the social events of the season. It wasn't just a game, it was a cultural moment. Story 2, truly lightning in a bottle. It was groundbreaking. It propelled online gaming so well that even in the early 2000s, people were more than happy to fork over $50 a year for the service. The story and lore were captivating, and the music was incredible. The fun that game created was immense. Red vs. Blue was an online parody series so popular that a made-up game called Griffball became a variant in Halo 3. The Halo subculture runs deep. Story 3. It was the first game that really nailed the formula for console first-person shooters, and Halo 2 brought multiplayer first-person shooters to consoles. For a while, it was the biggest game and franchise in console games. Not as big on PC at the time, though Halo 1 did have a healthy multiplayer community then. Story 4. If you ask me what the closest that any gaming media has come to uniting people in real life and promoting getting together, it would be Halo local area network parties. Even split-screen co-op. I hate that games don't really have split-screen co-op anymore. Everything is optimized for everyone to have their own personal computer or console in their own home on their own screen. When I'm in a position to buy a home, I plan on setting up 4 televisions in my basement in a square and putting couches at each one to have local area network parties again, although the local network will probably be wireless technically. For you youngsters, local area network literally meant hardwired consoles to an Ethernet hub. No lag really though. Story 5. Future generations will likely never get a series that captures the same feelings it instilled. Look up the Halo 3 Believe campaign. It should be a 14-minute video. I can't link it right now, but if it doesn't include them, you should also watch the Halo Landfall live-action videos. Halo was absolutely one of the most popular games of its era. Story 6. Several people would permanently leave their Xbox game controllers and TVs in one guy's house, so we could all go there every day with a full 16-player local area network already set up and ready to go. Story 7. Halo 2 was big. Not big for a video game, but big. It grossed more revenue in the first 24 hours of release than any entertainment product ever had. More than any movie, album, or TV show. Halo 2 was a bona fide cultural event. Story 8. The midnight release of Halo 3 was the biggest thing ever. There was live news coverage of it. G4, if you remember that television channel, had this television special about its midnight release, interviewing people standing in line to get the game, some of whom skipped school for it. Microsoft even had this promotion where 4 lucky people in line would be picked at random to play its split-screen multiplayer early, on an IMAX screen. And best of all, Bill Gates himself sold the first copy of Halo 3 at a Best Buy in Washington. It was indeed when the franchise peaked. Story 9, it was a trendsetter, and when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 came around, the games were neck and neck on weekly player count charts. There is a reason why a lot of games were being advertised as a Halo killer by rival publishing studios. Then everything changed when Frank O'Connor took power at the helm of 343 Industries. Retcons abound. Unnecessary changes to the franchise's soul and gameplay mechanics drove away players. Every game has had nothing to do with the overarching story set up by the previous game. It was so bad that when Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Halo foresaw its player count cut in half overnight. It just goes to show, if you are taking the reins for a successful franchise, don't do anything crazy. Just do what the guys before were already doing. Otherwise, you crash, and we have an unfortunate mess on our hands. Story 10, true story. We went to Best Buy to get an Xbox the year it debuted. We were super excited to play Toe Jam and Earl. Panic on Funkatron. We were standing in line to pay, and a random worker saw us in line and said, "You guys are buying an Xbox and you're not buying Halo?" We said, "What's Halo?" The worker went back to the game's display, came back to the register, dropped Halo on our stuff and said, "Don't ask questions. Just buy this. You'll thank me." It was $50, which was a lot of money, but we shrugged our shoulders and bought it. Could never find the guy to thank him for the hundreds of hours of gameplay. Story 11. How big was it? Reading the replies is giving me chills because it's bringing up memories from that chapter of my life. Halo wasn't a game, it was a cultural being. It literally had its own TV show Saturday mornings for the Major League Gaming events. Red Bull had Walshy sponsored. Halo 2 had lines out the door for the midnight release. Nothing could touch Halo on consoles. The only thing that beat Halo was Bungie itself when they got away from Microsoft and 343 Industries ran Halo into the ground. Story 12. Back in the millennial days, we had the legendary trinity of 360 console shooters: Halo, Call of Duty, and Gears of War. You would have to have been between the ages of 12 to 25 to have truly experienced this golden gaming era in its prime. This was the absolute pinnacle of video gaming to me. I do not think we will ever get anything like that back again, unfortunately. If only we knew we were living in the good old days back then. Story 13. In Western countries, I imagine it was nearly a religion from Halo 1 to Halo 3. I know people who act like no other game existed at the time and are super surprised when I mention it wasn't so universal worldwide. For us here in Central Europe, it was rather meh. I played it a bit, but like nearly everyone around, I was already much more PC or PlayStation focused. From my peers, I literally don't know anyone who played it, and I was the nerdiest kid in the late 1990s and throughout the early 2000s. Story 14. I still remember the crazy frenzy when Halo 3 launched. Literally every friend I knew was on it. It was basically Call of Duty before Call of Duty. Microsoft fumbled that so hard over the years. Story 15. From my console perspective, Halo 2 is the father of first-person shooter online multiplayer. I don't know how anyone could dispute that. Halo 2 was synonymous with Xbox Live. It was the first game that completely nailed online play, on top of being a phenomenal game. There was a huge drop-off in the lag issues that plagued online games, ranked matchmaking, and the ability to queue up online with 4 people on split screen. A headset to communicate. Do people forget that? The father of voice chat trash talk. They crushed it all. Just unreal at the time. The only downside was the cheating and modders, but you really didn't see much of that until high skill levels or in custom games for fun. Actually really crazy looking back at how broken the cheating became and how little control they had. But that is all part of the nostalgia for me. The wait for Halo 3 was insane, and it was honestly another amazing game. A few months later, though, Call of Duty finally caught up and released Call of Duty 4. Not that this swayed fans, but there was finally competition. What a disaster Call of Duty 3 was, or else Halo 2 might not have been as dominant as it was for about 3 years straight. In my opinion, the greatness ended with Reach. The game just didn't feel the same, though I was definitely a fan of Halo 4, which felt more like a return to the experience. Story 16. You have no idea. Everyone played it. I don't have a good enough sense of the scene today, but it was on the level of something like a Call of Duty or a Fortnite. It was wildly popular. I still remember getting my Halo 2 steel case. I also had the green translucent Halo Edition Xbox. We would have regular local area network parties where everyone would go to one person's house with their consoles and a TV and play 8-player games. It had us in a complete chokehold. As luck would have it, I was absolutely terrible at the game. Story 17. Kids these days will never know the energy of 4 televisions, 4 gaming consoles, and around 20 other friends in a basement having a Halo party. It just isn't the same online. Story 18. So popular that most, if not all, of the people who played games, let alone shooters, casually or super competitively, would play it. It was at the forefront of gaming when online gaming became a thing with Halo 2 on Xbox Live. And even before online gaming, LAN parties were a big thing where you and your friends would play. It would transcend friend groups and allow you to meet new friends. If they gamed and had an Xbox or later a personal computer, they probably played Halo. Not to mention that the first iterations of Major League Gaming had this as its premier tournament. Story 19. If one were a personal computer gamer, it probably wasn't nearly as dramatic of a leap, but for the millions of console-only gamers like myself, many of us went from playing GoldenEye and Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64 for our first-person shooter fix to Halo. Such a massive leap just absolutely blew our minds. It's hard to describe how massive of a leap it was at the time. It wouldn't be until Half-Life Alex, that I ever felt anything close to similar to that feeling of just massive awe of how huge a leap it felt compared to any previous first-person shooter I had played before. Story 20. I destroyed my middle school basketball team because I got the two best players to quit the team because of Halo. Basketball practice after school or go to my house and play Halo. It was a very easy decision. Story 21. It was definitely big, but I think it needs to be contextualized in the fact that gaming as a whole was less popular in 2001 to 2007 than it is now. So, Halo 2 and Halo 3 peak are well below something like Fortnite's peak. Although I think it would probably still be in the top 5 or 10 if you compared their peaks to peaks of Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, Fortnite, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, etc. The best I can find is that Halo 3 peaked slightly over 1 million players, maybe 1.1 million max. Fortnite has peaked at 10 times that. But again, far fewer people gaming overall means it was occupying a far bigger share of gaming than it might seem from me saying that. Story 22. A lot of United States-centric posts in here might not be aware that Halo was really a very United States-specific thing. In Europe, Halo wasn't that big because PlayStation had complete dominance in the console wars. I believe the Xbox barely outsold the Nintendo 64. Halo was big enough to get its own local area network parties in the United States. Meanwhile, in Europe, Counter-Strike dominated the local area network parties, and Halo on local area network just wasn't a thing. I even saw more Soldier of Fortune 2 competitions. Even the handful of pure console local area networks I went to didn't have Halo. That was mostly Pro Evolution Soccer and FIFA, Tekken, Street Fighter, GoldenEye, Gran Turismo, etc. Story 23. It was a pioneer in propelling first-person shooters from being PC-focused and extremely skill-based to something you could play casually with a controller. It essentially mainstreamed first-person shooters. Aim assist exists because of Halo. Story 24. Oh man, it was everywhere. I was so motivated to make it through the week, especially on a holiday, to know I can grab my Red Mountain Dew, chips, and a whole bunch of junk food, and have a game session all weekend while it's cold out. I still remember my greatest achievement was completing Legendary. My young mind went crazy. Story levosham. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, dun 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 junun. Story 26. There's a reason a lot of people put Master Chief on their Mount Rushmore of video game characters, right next to Mario, Sonic, Link, or Cloud. Prime Halo was massive, and it was influential enough to help sway the direction of modern gaming to where it is today. The first-person shooter genre was cooking over on personal computers, but consoles didn't quite have that certain something. Sure, GoldenEye showed that it was possible back on Nintendo 64 and it was awesome, but this was a generation and a half later and we still didn't have a worthy successor until Halo did just everything right. Frankly, Microsoft probably wouldn't still be making consoles today if it weren't for Halo. Story 27. Huge. I bought the first-generation Xbox with the Halo package just to play this game. I spent hours on it, and I mean an unhealthy amount of hours completing this game. Story 28. When is the last time you set aside your entire weekend to haul an 80-pound TV to a friend of a friend's house? Because the internet was only 56 kilobits per second, and you had to be within a 100-meter local area network cable to do multiplayer? Before its prime, it was that good. Story 29. It was nuts. Like every kid in school wanted to play Halo as soon as we got home. And then when Halo 2 had Xbox Live and larger online games, it was insane. But I'll always miss playing split-screen Halo 1, bouncing vehicles off each other on Blood Gulch. Story 30. I went to a friend's house who bought an Xbox on release day, and he had Halo and Project Gotham Racing. I drove around all night and dragged my girlfriend, now wife, to too many places to count, trying to find an Xbox and never did find one. I ended up just ordering one the next day and getting it a week later. Story 31. I remember when the Finish the Fight trailer came out. Absolute pandemonium everywhere. Everyone was so excited for any piece of information they could learn ahead of Halo 3. The brutes, the motorcycles, the Arbiter, the shield grenades, the flood, all of it. Story 32. My high school best friend dropped out for it. He was substantially very good and attended Major League Gaming. but he never won anything from it or made anything of it. He regrets it to this day. Story 33. The best way to describe Halo in the early 2000s is as an unstoppable juggernaut. Almost every science fiction shooter that came out branded itself as the Halo killer. You can tell how those games are since Halo is still going strong. Story 34. It was insane. I remember everyone at school talking about what rank you were on Halo Reach and how long it took to get to Lieutenant Colonel or get the fire on your back, which was like 2 million credits points. Each purchase you got felt important because you didn't just unlock it through a season pass. You unlocked it with sheer willpower and grind to get through from private through grade 2 and 3. Each rank you'd notice had a different helmet, and the fear you had when you saw the glass top helmet you unlock as, I believe, a warrant officer made others so worried. Going to friends' houses and comparing ranks, they were left envying you. And playing Forge, oh my lord. Oh, the days have turned, and I will forever miss Halo Reach, playing Infected in my friends' basements.